Why do you keep losing in hardcore? You've probably watched a hardcore guide before. Maybe you've even copied the exact loadout, but somehow you still lose. After hundreds of hardcore runs, I noticed that most failed attempts come down to the same few mistakes. So today, I'm going to explain exactly why you keep losing hardcore, and more importantly, how to stop it. Reason 1. You're not farming enough. The biggest mistake I see is players being too scared to farm. Because if you don't build your economy early, you're going to struggle later on, especially around waves 19 to 25, where enemies start becoming much harder to deal with. Hardcore rewards greed, but only if you understand what your towers are capable of handling. For example, in solo runs, towers like Engineer, Golden Cowboy are extremely valuable because they can defend early waves while still allowing you to invest into your economy or completely replace farm at all. For duo and trio runs, there are even more options. Towers that provide cheap early defense can allow your team to focus more on scaling your economy. The most important thing to know is knowing when you can afford to stop defending and start investing. And when farming, upgrading your farms to level 3 is usually the most efficient option as it provides the fastest return on your investment. A strong hardcore run doesn't start with damage, it starts with a strong economy. But even if your economy is perfect, you can still lose if you aren't prepared for what's coming next. Which is where the second reason comes in. You don't know what's coming, or the wave structure. Hidden enemies, flying enemies, leads, speedy enemies, and buffing enemies can all catch you off guard if your loadout isn't prepared for these threats. Your run can end before it even gets started. That's why knowing the wave structure is just as important as having strong towers. The TDS Wiki has a complete breakdown of every wave and enemy spawn, and I highly recommend checking it before attempting hardcore. But to save you some time, here are some of the biggest waves to watch out for. During the early game, waves 10, 12, 14, and 25 are the first major checkpoints. Each one introduces new threats that can expose weaknesses in your defense, whether it's missing detection, not enough damage, or simply bringing the wrong towers. The mid game is where most runs begin to fall apart. Waves 28, 31, and 33 are especially dangerous because enemies like void pikes and everybody's favorite, void floaters, start appearing. If your defense isn't prepared by this point, your entire run can quickly collapse. And once you reach wave 40 and beyond, hardcore changes completely. You're no longer just clearing normal enemies, you're dealing with bosses, healers, and massive enemy rushes, which every mistake becomes such more punishing. So, hardcore rewards preparation, not reaction. But knowing what to do isn't entirely enough. You also need to execute it correctly, which is where the third reason comes in. You aren't microing. Ever wonder why Void Reaver always escapes with just a silver of health? Most of the time, it's because you aren't microing. Microing means selling your towers and placing them further down the track to squeeze out every bit of damage possible. Since Void Reaver travels at such a long distance with a slow movement speed, repositioning your towers at the right moment can easily be the difference between winning and losing. Even with a heavily upgraded skill tree, learning this mechanic is extremely valuable. Without one, microwing becomes almost necessary if you want consistent wins. The difference between winning and losing is simply making better decisions during the run. But even perfect placement in micro won't save you if you ignore one important thing. Enemy abilities. That's where the fourth reason comes in. Some enemies don't beat you with health, they beat you by disabling your towers. Many hardcore enemies can stun towers, reduce their range by 100%, or apply powerful debuffs that can completely destroy your damage output. And if your entire defense gets hit at once, even an easy wave can become impossible to survive. That's where stun baiting comes in. Instead of letting your main defense get disabled, You intentionally sacrifice a cheap tower to take the attack instead. By doing this, your important towers keep attacking while the enemy wastes its abilities on a tower that doesn't even matter. One mechanic that catches a lot of players off guard is the permanent stun during wave 45, when purple eyes appear above your tower. Don't ignore them. Sell and replace those towers immediately. Otherwise, they remain disabled and your damage drops massively and your defense can quickly fall apart. So, your towers can carry the run if they're too busy being disabled.
Since wave 43 and 45 are where most hardcore runs fall apart, here's how to avoid the mistakes that usually end them. For wave 43, this is where players lose. The biggest mistake here is placing towers too close to your main defense. Instead, place bait towers on the cross section of the map to keep the Void Swordmaster away from your important towers. This wave doesn't require much micro, but proper tower placement is extremely important. Also make sure to prioritize the Void Cultist at the back. If left alive, it can continuously heal the Void Knights and Vindicator, making the wave much harder than it needs to be. Wave 44. This wave is much more straightforward. Focus the Void Cultists first by setting some DPS towers to last, so they can kill the cultists before they start spamming portals. If a Void Guardian leaks past your defense, don't stun bait it. Doing so gives it additional shield, which often turns a recoverable mistake into a failed run. And lastly, on wave 45. This is the final test and where everything you've learned throughout this video comes together. Before the wave even starts, I highly recommend using a timescale ticket and slowing the game down to 0.5x. The extra reaction time makes microing and selling towers much easier. As the wave begins, bait the first 3 Void Knights one at a time. Try not to let their attacks overlap and always use cheap bait towers instead of risking your main defense. The next mechanic is you need to watch out for Void Judgment, the purple eye that appears above your towers. This is one of the biggest reasons players lose hardcore. The moment you see the purple eye, sell and replace the affected tower immediately. Leaving it there means the tower stays permanently disabled, costing you thousands of damage over the course of the fight. If a Void Guardian manages to leak, immediately start microing your damage dealers further down the path so you can finish it off before it even reaches the exit. Once the Void Reaver is left alone, keep microing any towers that are no longer in your range. Your goal is to have every possible tower shooting at all times instead of sitting idle. You should always try to bait its slash attack whenever possible, since it reduces your tower's fire rate by 40% and can significantly lower your overall damage. Finally, and this is one of the most important parts of the fight, before Void Reaver drops below 180,000 HP, start moving most of your towers to the very back of the map. Once it reaches the health threshold, it stops attacking and begins sprinting towards the exit. If your towers aren't already repositioned, they'll quickly run out of track and lose valuable damage that could have been the difference between victory and death. And that's why so many hardcore runs end during these final waves. It's not because people suddenly lack TPS. It's because every mistake gets punished much harder. Master your economy, learn the waves, practice your micro, and understand enemy attacks, and you'll be surprised how much more consistent your hardcore runs become. Good luck, and I hope this video helped you beat hardcore.